Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Sonic.
Empire of the Suns.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up?
Hi, this is a unfortunate podcast where we've been in waiting mode, I think.
Twiddling our thumbs.
But, you know, we got a job to do. We got to please the people and talk about Suns basketball, even though it's a lot of questions about roster stuff, you know, head coach. But we'll try to catch you up on the news cycle and, yeah, just kind of get into where we're at in this moment, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to stick with Frank Vogel or fire Frank Vogel at like 5:15 p.m. Tuesday. We're recording this at like 2:08 Tuesday, so I'm giving this podcast like 3 hours of life because that's why we've been waiting so long. We didn't want to post one and then have the life cycle of it be dramatically reduced. That's what we're waiting on. We're waiting for a decision on Frank. It took the Lakers 2 days, less than 2 days, to fire Darvin Ham. It's taking the Suns a lot longer to make a decision on Frank Vogel. We met with Matt Ishbia and James Jones on Wednesday. Ishbia said that was his first time kind of getting in, so he was going to have the meetings and the discussions over the next couple of days. I think when he said that, we all were thinking like 48 hours, okay.
End of week, yeah.
Maybe end of week, and it's Tuesday. So apparently there's a conversation they're waiting on to still have. They're surely not, I don't know. This is too far speculative already, but again, we're sitting here talking, so we just don't know why it is taking so long. Again, maybe there's a conversation they're waiting on. Maybe they're evaluating another part of this process. Breaking news, the head coaching free agents aren't really that alluring.
Attractive.
I saw a Windhorst clip this morning where he was talking about the JJ Redick thing, and he was just like, and not to JJ Redick directly, but more the Lakers head coaching search as a whole. And it was like they don't have a lot of like awesome candidates, and that's where it is. Not the only, but the real head coach with like a ton of success out there is Mike Budenholzer. I think we all have an idea in our mind of what the Suns head coach should be. I think some people want to focus on offense. I think others like you and me want to focus on someone who will absolutely be either 1A or 1B to Devin Booker in the leadership totem pole, which it clearly Vogel tried his best to be, but wasn't respected like someone who held that position. So I think that's where we're looking specifically, but we're getting too far into it because we're going to be here if they fire Frank Vogel or if they don't, and that's when we'll really dive in and like I'll pitch to you why the Suns should hire Dan Hurley. Like I'll just, you know.
What do you want to go over the press conference, because it obviously was weird timing for the sake of like we're going to hold this press conference before anything happens, even though the season's over, before we meet with people. I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much.
Yeah. What'd you think? Because I have my thoughts. I've shared them. I've gotten a lot of fans' thoughts. I'll share those too. But what'd you think?
If we're getting away from all the quotes that blew up and Draymond Green making fun of James Jones, talking about how they use Kevin Durant and not maximizing him and no one has, all that stuff, my takeaways of things that I think were pointed and why Matt Ishbia and James Jones sent them were, one, I mean, this one's kind of obvious. They're committed to the big three. Like, not only functionally is that probably the case, but like it just makes sense unless you give me a really good trade package for one of those guys. Like, I believe them. I believe that you have your core five guys with Nurk and Grayson Allen. Like, that's pretty factual because you can't trade Grayson now for a while. You can't trade Nurk probably for anything that you get in return. So you're kind of stuck with where they are. And there's reasons to believe that that's true. And I think that bit was honestly important going into the offseason, just we know what they're working with, and they have to improve around the margins, and the margins obviously are going to be improved if you have a good plan with the head coach and all that stuff too. But yeah, if we don't want to harp on that, then there's not much there, because again, it depends on what you determine with these meetings or whatever you're going on this past week that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, tonally it was weird, and it's one of those things where you're watching a press conference in the moment and you don't want to jump ahead and be declarative about something, but then you see the reactions come in. You see the reactions of other people who were there. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, they weren't the only ones. It was overwhelmingly positive, and I use the word overwhelming just because I think that Ishbia opened the press conference by saying how frustrated he was, and that was declared very well. But at the same time, there was a loss of balance there with
defensiveness. What do you call it? Defensive?
No,
I would.
I think, yeah, I'll let you. I mean, I had plenty of fans, like not just one, like say they felt gaslit, like they were going that far to say
Yeah.
like they feel like this guy is gaslighting me into like thinking that this year was better than it was, when we saw it for what it was, which was a massive disappointment and another humiliating end to the season for them 3 years in a row. I think that's something that I've learned a lot. This is a weird thing to say when 98% of the people listening are fans and we're the media people, but like fans feel humiliated too, because like they're fans talking to other fans, and
Yeah.
it's like they take pride in being a Suns fan, and it's like they share that humiliation.
Suns
as
and
well.
Four guy is not walking around being declarative out there in life right now.
It's something you might not realize until you do the job, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So they were justifiably very angry, and they've been very pissed off, and maybe they're feeling better now because the Timberwolves have won 2 games we didn't expect them to win. I don't know. I don't want to talk about that. Don't get me on a microphone about that right now. But overall, it was just weird, and there were a couple of takeaways. I think you hit on one where it was like they seem pretty committal to what they're with, and I don't really think that they have a choice necessarily. Now,
Right.
if Kevin Durant asks for a trade, they don't have a choice either. So,
And then you do it.
and then you do it because you kind of have to, and then you go from there. But it's my least favorite time of the whole calendar because Stephen A. Smith says a Devin Booker throwaway line, and then it's a 72-hour news cycle. We couldn't even keep it to a 24-hour news cycle. We had to do it for 3 days. I say I wasn't involved, but I'm staying on my timeline because it's still that time of year where I have to. It's part of my job. And it's been frustrating. Kevin Durant and Chet Holmgren are buddies, so now everyone's talking about Oklahoma City. He tweeted congrats at Wemby today, so he's probably going to the Spurs now today. Is that going to be today's news cycle? Rick Bucher wrote a story where someone told him Oklahoma City and San Antonio have the assets for Kevin Durant. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you're not getting Kevin Durant if the best player in the deal is Devin Vassell. Like,
No.
you're not getting Kevin Durant. It's not going to happen.
And also, this team does not want draft picks.
No.
Which is what is going to be the
Exactly,
You better
yeah.
give them good role players.
Yeah, I get Oklahoma City can throw them 9 first-round picks, but unless the Suns can reroute those picks immediately into a really, really good player, they're not going to do it. But yeah, we're waiting here, and I think the thing I keep coming back to is Matt Ishbia has said and proven so far that he's going to do whatever it takes and what he feels best to win a championship. Like, everything he does is like, is this going to... And I just can't believe fully that if you watched that full season, watched what went on with the team, that advancing with Vogel is the best move. We'll get more into it next week. I said this a ton last week, or the next 4 hours, whenever this is. But I think there's an argument that he's not at the top of the blame list, and I think most people would agree he's not at the top of the blame list. For me, it's pretty darn close. But with that being said, that's just not how this works. I'm sorry.
It's not attached to the blame. The amount of blame does not attach to whether you should keep your job.
Correct. If it's Devin Booker's fault the most, that doesn't mean that Frank Vogel suddenly doesn't have to get fired anymore.
Right.
That's not how it works.
It's always the coach, and it's like if you've lost the locker room, it doesn't matter how many good ideas. It doesn't matter if it was even your fault in communicating those ideas. It's if you can't change the core of this roster, then you have to go.
Correct. I think that was a really good way of putting it, because I don't understand how you can come back next season and believe that he's going to have the full attention of, because when you're not able to show your identity as a team, and your principle, like I couldn't see as if you would have not heard what he said preseason, training camp, all that kind of stuff, and went in and watched this team for 82 games, you would have been like, I don't really know what Frank Vogel's principles are. I can't really tell on the court. And that inability to connect to his players, to get that to show on the court, is why we're sitting here thinking that he's still probably going to get fired.
Here's the weird part about this season, the circumstances, and like why there's this weird lag period and they didn't just fire him. One, I think it is good, like Matt Ishbia didn't just say, nope, we're moving on. Like, I want to consider and think about it a little bit and talk to people more if he hadn't already, and really try to dig in to see what the root of why it hasn't looked good. Now, like him saying like they're 26, 27 other teams wouldn't trade spots with him, I don't buy that. But like, fair, you can have bluster, you can have confidence as an owner, as a leader, that's fine. That's obviously who he is. Is it overconfidence? Probably. But that aside, I think it's interesting because they're evaluating Frank Vogel's job status and unsure of it, because there's not an obvious answer of, oh, Frank just lost the locker room. Like, if I asked you your gut feeling of, did this team and its players hate each other and hate their head coach? I do not think so.
Hate's a strong word. I think hate is...
Right. But on a scale of...
Respect is the right word.
But even on a 0 to 10 scale of respect, do you think that they're at a 2 of Frank Vogel? I don't think so. I think they're at a 5, 6. And that's where it's not just like...
You need a 9 or a 10 on this team.
Yeah.
Because there's no other...
But that's why it's hard, and it's not as easy as saying, yeah, he just can't return for them.
I'm about to say everyone's favorite sentence that everyone's going to love hearing me say. Draymond Green made some good points.
Uh-huh.
When he was talking about leadership, he went on to say, don't come at me with this He prefaced by saying, basically, don't come at me with the garbage like Kevin Durant doesn't lead. But what he does is he leads by example. And basically what he prefaced with is, he prefaced that because you have to set him up in a position to succeed with like proper leadership around him.
Yeah.
Because he will lead by example. He will do that. But he was citing this because the Warriors did maximize him, which is correct. The Warriors did maximize him.
Yeah. Go look at the finals
because
numbers.
They had an entire culture, identity, like a dynasty for him as a backdrop, essentially. And they had Draymond, Clay, Steph, and Kerr. Like, they had 4 leaders on that team, not just one.
Yeah.
This team had maybe 1 leader this year. Maybe. That's it. So I think that it is imperative, and we'll get more into reasons why later. Again, we don't want to sit here and rehash what we're saying now when we're not trying to tease you guys, but it's like we have a whole nother episode here to do when we find out what's going on here. And I myself don't want to repeat myself. Not a big fan of it. Did you take anything away from the Athletic story after reading it a couple more times?
The one that popped right after the...
Yeah, we briefly hit on it.
Yeah.
I just said like, oh, wow, there was arguments or yelling before those Clippers games. I'm so surprised. It was not clear on the floor at all.
It wasn't.
There was the KD doesn't like to sit in the corner thing, which
that happened to Goran Dragic here. Like, yeah, nothing surprising. I think the only thing was the tidbit about Frank raising his voice after the Clippers games or whatever. That terrible stretch and not being taken seriously. And I think that, to your point earlier about like, you gotta have respect in the room as a leader, and if he doesn't have that and no one else has that, then you're in a bad spot. And I think part of the valuation process right now is like, name one assistant you could hire that would suddenly come in and be the voice of the Phoenix Suns locker room. Is there one? Like, what's Sam Cassell doing? What's Jared Dudley doing? Like, they're already have jobs on staffs. Like, why would someone like that? It doesn't seem like a viable fix where you can prop up enough support behind Frank Vogel and to also take over leadership of some of that responsibility from the players. Like, I just don't see that top assistant seat being enough, right? So that's where...
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I've thought that was bogus this whole time, talking about, like, we're going to reshape the staff. It's like you spent a metric ton of money on your assist. We don't have the numbers in front of us, unfortunately. Like, coaches' salaries are harder to find these days. You got to get in the weeds to find them, basically. But I'm sure if we compared salaries of just Fizdale and Kevin Young alone to the assistants across the league, it wasn't even close. And like Fizdale is like well regarded in that front, so I don't understand any kind of swap there that would help necessarily. The KD part was just interesting, just because it again reinforced how they need to. There was a clear disconnect between the offense that they wanted and the offense that they were told to do, didn't want to do, ignored when told to do. There's just a lot there to unpack, but I think to kind of end on the KD thing, I guess, I think the biggest question with him being here is, from our vantage point, we don't know how does he want to be used, and in the ways that he wants to be used, is it the best way to use him? Because I would assume that he just still wants to come off like pin downs and all that stuff that the Suns did every now and then.
Was that Gilbert Arenas' podcast?
Because that's the best way to use him.
Yeah.
That's what Draymond was saying, and Draymond correctly challenged people to go watch Suns games. And like, how many times did he come off an action like this?
It was Draymond's podcast where he's like, they don't do that. And you wrote about when they traded for him in what, 2 Februaries ago, like the Nets.
I did a story then, and then I did one after on Monty, and it was like Monty was using him in pin downs, like and that kind of stuff a lot. Like pin down meaning an off ball screen,
flying
on the
defense
block,
is moving,
facing the baseline. He runs out towards the elbow, basically him moving into space around the elbow free throw line, like catch and shoots from the mid range. Basically, that was the term that Draymond used as well, and that's. You saw it every now and then, but you just didn't see it consistently enough.
I saw a map that was basically, I think it was Sports Info Solutions, but they had a map of faces of passes out of certain positions on the floor. So, like, if you had to guess where his would be, it was all high ISO, like, throw it to him, he's posting up, swing it. And I looked at that and I was like, and that was by, like, he's leading the league, and it was both, I think, wings. It might have been only one. But anyway, it's like, I don't like that, because I didn't like what I saw out of that. It was a lot of turnovers. Yes, he got assists. Yes, he swung the ball and got it moving out of that. But that's not optimizing Kevin Durant. That's making Kevin Durant optimize Grayson Allen, and which is great and fine. But again, you want to optimize Kevin Durant.
I thought it was clear coming into the season, and then even more clear after like 15 games, that on the initiating totem pole, like, he should be third.
Yeah.
And I tried to have this conversation on Twitter, and KD stans just took it as a slight towards Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And then I never talked about it again, except on here. That was like when I tried to talk about, was that a KD thing again as well? No, that was a Booker thing. Like when I was LeBron provided his mindset on JJ Redick's podcast with him about why he doesn't take 12 to 13 threes a game. And I just thought his perspective was really interesting on it. And then people, of course, didn't read, when I provided a disclaimer, people did not read the disclaimer, which specifically said, I understand these are two different players. I was just curious on the mindset. And then people were like, LeBron shoots this much at the rim. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, August is when I will return to talking about basketball on Twitter. But to that point on KD, it's just not been the best way to use him, is him bringing the ball up. And they're still doing it, which they should. But too many times they did not, the offense was one look. And I would say, eye test wise, I don't know what the numbers say, KD moving into one look, it was the mid post isolation more than anything else. And that's a no-no, because they were, I was about to say a curse word, they were terrible at benefiting off of it. They were terrible at not benefiting off of it when he was one-on-one, because then he was hitting his shots because he's Kevin Durant. I know that the points per possession were pretty low on the post-ups, but the ball rotations specifically off of that were atrocious. It was, the Lakers did like a rotating defense like the third game of the year, and ever since then, that was like the game, and then they never figured it out really after that. It never really led to, I think when the first Beal turnover, if I remember correctly, I know it was off of ball rotation, so I'm assuming it was a KD mid-post isolation because that's the only way they can trigger ball rotations on this team all year, which I think was another reason why they went to it a little bit. But yeah, that's my longer way, and we'll get more into it this offseason, just of how they are using him and how he wants to be used. Because if he's still cool with I would assume he's cool with doing all the work off the ball, because that is taxing stuff. To come around all that motion, and they need it to be there because now you need him to be coming off that motion and not getting the ball, because it's opening something up for Bradley on that side. And that's where
the complexity we never saw.
That's the complexity we expected. That was why a lot of people were really going at Kevin Young towards the end of the season and blaming him for it. Well, it's like, well, how much of that was Kevin Young's offense? How much of it was the offense the guys? Because clearly they weren't doing everything that they were coached to do. Clearly, like that, I thought that was obvious when we were watching the games. Like you watched Kevin Young and everyone on the bench stand up and like try and get them to run off of every rebound in the Minnesota series, and sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Let's go through real quick for refreshers, and because there's a little news here, coaching candidate list not great. So you got Budenholzer, we mentioned.
Looking at just the 5 finalists from last year: Vogel, Nick Nurse, Philly, Doc, Milwaukee,
Young,
Fernandez, hired by the Nets, and then Kevin Young's gone. So all those guys are already off the table.
Yeah. Okay. So who are we working with? We're guessing here, by the way. Ty Lue was the obvious one after our last podcast, right after the Game 4 loss. We threw him out there, and you're guessing and you're looking 10 steps ahead. While Woj came out and said Clippers want to get a deal done with an extension for him. He has 1 year left on his deal currently.
Ty Lue said he wants to get a deal done, but
after they were bounced out,
gets a deal done, and if he's just looking for the best payday, we know a guy that'll pay up for the payday.
Yeah.
How do they get him? Does it take their first round pick to get him? That's 15 steps down the line. We only got to step 3 last year.
I was wondering if this waiting game was like, are they just waiting to see what happens if Ty Lue gets bounced so we can do the undercurrents? I don't know if there are rules about talking to coaches, by the way. I have no idea. I assume you would talk to their agent.
You can't talk to him.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
But now, I was curious if that had something to do with the wait. We're still waiting, though. So.
Are there ways to like feel out? I don't know.
Probably.
I'm just speculating.
People know people, and then you get another person who knows the person. And then
no one would break the rules around here.
No one would, even if it was, say, your backup center.
Yeah, never. No, totally not.
Okay.
What was it? Okay,
Sorry.
so
who else is out there?
In 2019,
go for
the
it.
Lakers had a head coach opening. So did the Phoenix Suns.
Yes.
The Lakers were going after Ty Lue. They were trying to get Ty Lue. They were talking to Monty too. Monty's talking to the Lakers. Suns just offer him the job. They go, that's great. I'll take the Suns job.
I forgot about this.
Lakers were like, we're the Lakers, excuse you? Like, we get to say this, not you? And then they hire Frank Vogel. They fire Frank Vogel, hire Darvin Ham. Suns fire Monty. They go for Ty Lue. Kind of, sort of. How much did they go for him? I don't know, but we knew there were severe rumblings that there was interest in the ways in which reporters cannot say there was interest because it's breaking rules.
I mean,
but it
Mark
was
Stein said that in his newsletter yesterday or whatever, like the Suns were interested in Ty Lue. Yes.
It was very inferred.
Yeah.
Suns can't get anywhere there, so they hire Frank Vogel. Now, if Frank Vogel gets let go, are the Lakers and the Suns both going after Ty Lue at the same time this time? It's interesting. It's interesting how things keep circling around to that. Okay, so there are the out-of-the-box candidates. This is where J.J. Redick's name is coming up. Shout out him getting in the you should take those interviews.
Yeah.
You should just take them. There's no reason not to. It looks great for you.
Yeah.
It validates him more. It's like, oh man, that's
Kevin Young, every cycle, every opening.
Remember when Kenny Smith was getting interviews? Like, yeah, take him. Sure. He is like, that's the JJ Redick bracket of like the more unorthodox hires where it's the 3 that I have down. I'm looking at a story that I've had ready for like over a week on whether he comes back or not. That's what we've been doing here. Waiting in the meantime. The 3 out of the box ones I had were Redick, D'Antoni, and Hurley, and we'll wait on that for now. I said Hurley just because I want
Did you read that somewhere? I'm curious.
I want offense. Did I what?
Did you read like Danny Hurley NBA at any point, or did you just pop that into your brain yourself?
Just popped it into my brain.
That popped into my brain when I was literally watching the. I tweeted it.
We need offense. Who runs good offense? Dan Hurley.
I was watching how flawless their offense and their action. I was like, this is not the usual college.
Yes.
Everything has a reason. They're running it. They're running offense too.
Yeah.
Their star in the title game scored 20 points, and he's like, Tristan Newton may not even be drafted if you look at big boards. And it's like his offense creates for very talented people, but also the lesser talented. It's a good offense. Anyway, continue.
If I was a player and I wanted to play a specific style, I would want to play the style they play.
Yeah, so that popped. I'm saying this because that popped in my head too. I was like, oh, why isn't I'm surprised it hasn't been a top. It may be, I don't watch First Take all the time. Maybe it popped up right after they won, but he kind of squashed and said, I'm going back to UConn when the Kentucky job was. Anyway, I don't know why it hasn't popped bigger that he should go to the NBA, but that's just me.
Well, it's like something we used to talk about all the time with the Suns 2 years ago, that they had an offensive style everyone wanted to play, and then they just fired that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, well. There's a lot of... is uninspiring a rude descriptor?
It's a little rude, but like...
Ex-head coaches. Yeah. Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah.
Brett Brown. James Borrego. Dave Yeager. And Terry Stotts. I think all of these guys have not been in a position yet where they've taken on a job like this, where like they're joining a team that is going to be a contender and expected to compete for a title. Kenny Atkinson was there for Katie's first year when he was out for the whole year. So that team was still expected to make some noise. He got fired at nearly the end of the year. Jock Vaughn comes in as the assistant.
He was well liked among players and had a system.
There are the assistants that are seemingly due, like the Darvinhams of the world. So Sam Cassell, someone you mentioned. Becky Hammond's now in the WNBA, but she deserves to be mentioned in all of these. She's a great coach. Chris Quinn's been mentioned forever, but it's like, why would you ever leave the Heat? If you're succeeding with the Heat, it just doesn't seem like...
You see Spo's stress levels rising. You're like, maybe he's got to hang it up on it.
Like, it feels like Brett Brown is the coach in waiting for Pop, but
yeah,
I don't know. I mentioned Mark Jackson on this list because I don't know.
Do you want to... We'll get into this in a second.
That's under the previous one of former head coaches.
I've thought of Jared Dudley only because he's got the experience. He's been with some really good stars. He knows personalities. He and Book are cool, I believe. So that one, like, it was in my brain. But I don't know if he's viewed that way, I guess.
I'm looking at really tenured assistants.
Gotcha, yeah.
And Jared's just been doing it for only a couple of years at this point. I don't know where he's at on, like, the whiz kid pecking order. Like, is he viewed as, like, a next, like, you're going to, like...
Is he like JJ Redick without a podcast?
Is he a Kevin Young? Is he like a you're going to be a head coach one day? But yeah, that's the list. I mean, I don't think there's anyone too crazy.
Do you want to mention the one that you don't...
I don't even know what you're talking about, so go for it, pal.
Ex-Knicks head coach, friends with the owner. Okay, that's all.
Oh, you want to do like the Ishbia Isaiah Thomas?
Yeah, that just... Okay.
Tom Izzo weird zone?
Yeah. Is there anyone else in the Michigan State lands of coaching? Is Charlie Bell coach? I don't even know. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure when something crazy happens, I had said it on a podcast. That's all I was just doing there. Is that fine? Sorry.
Yeah, we should end it so this thing has a decent lifespan of like 4 hours instead of 3, I guess. Like, who is someone on vacation?
Man,
I think Book's up north, judging by his Instagram story.
It looked like some pine trees. Unsure.
And Ishbia wasn't there during exit interview, so did he go up north right away, or are we waiting on him? Can you guys do a FaceTime?
What if all the players left and he's like, wait, I haven't exit interviewed you. Do you think they had to stay 2 days late? That's honestly my biggest question. Hey, I've got mortgage stuff to do. Can you stay in town for 2 days? Can you do that if you're the boss? Probably. I don't know.
I would think so, yeah.
But also, like, if you're Kevin Durant, you have important things. You probably shouldn't have things planned out during what, in theory, should have been a playoff run, I guess. Never mind. Anyway, sorry, this is nothing. You should end it.
Give me your one random favorite draft guy before we go. Kevin's done 2 stories on the site looking at point guards and centers. Hot take. They should not draft a point guard or a center, but we'll talk about that in June.
Oh, what a teaser.
Vet min point guards look pretty good. There's a couple.
Okay.
Kyle Lowry. Maybe Monte Morris goes that low. Russ has taken it the last couple of years. Reggie Jackson.
Here's the problem. I'm not really impressed by like the options. Tyler Kolek, Marquette. I've probably consumed too much TJ McConnell, but like, a guy who can dribble the ball up the court, penetrate, even if he's your backup, that's a little helpful. Spray it out.
I think the thing with center is if you see it as someone who could like Derek Lively, basically.
There are not good options for that. I just did that.
Yeah, Derek Lively was a top 10 pick, so it's a different beast.
It's rough.
22nd, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what pick Josh Hart got traded for? 23.
Okay.
Cam Reddish was in there. Another player for the Suns could be in there. Now we're teasing. Now this is a tease.
That's good, yeah. You're prepared.
This is a tease. 3 guys I saw were, because I was looking at wings, the Colorado kid.
De Silva?
Did he pass the Aaron Holiday test for you?
More offensive, though. I'm being picky, but you're talking about we need just rotation players. But he can ball move. He can do a little of everything. Complementary piece.
If Jaquez was like a 9.4, I'd give De Silva like an 8.2, 8.3. He passed.
Yeah.
Like B minus, B.
Yeah.
Whereas Jaquez was like a flat A. He was obvious. Terrence Shannon out of Illinois, and then McCullough out of Kansas were like the 3 James
wings.
Jonesy, old. They have skills, multiple, but then they have one thing. Terrence Shannon is incredibly
downhill,
fast and can score and get to the rim. McCullough is the well-rounded of the 3, and De Silva is more of, I'm a shooter with size and can do all the other stuff well enough to do the deal.
The center crop is not looking great, I'll say that. Unless you're replacing Nurk. Which...
Edie's like going top 10, right?
No.
Oh, he's not?
I don't think so.
It's Klingon that's going high.
Yes.
That's right. It would be fun.
If Zach Edey's on the board at 22,
people are going to go nuts.
I would be curious if he would fit this team. He's not exactly a rim roller, but also like he shot 82% at the rim, and a lot of those were assisted. So in theory, he does not do more than he complements the big 3. I don't think he'll fall that far, but I don't think he will go top 10.
We'll check in a month from now. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Like we said, everyone, we will be back as soon as we get news on the head coaching search as soon as possible. Expect a podcast like a few hours later, unless it happens at... I mean, I say unless it happens at like midnight, but the Kevin Durant trade happened at midnight and we podcasted that night, so who knows?
I just have to call me, wake me up.
Yeah, I've had alarms going off like at 7, 8, 9 for the last like week. Just checking every hour. Yeah. Yeah. I've been playing Helldivers too much, man. I'm playing late. I've been sleeping in. I'm playing video
games. You deserve
it. Thanks, man. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Again, we'll be back when we're back. Bye.